Hey Kipsters, today we're going to talk about how to identify changes in genetic traits that have occurred over generations through natural selection. Let's get started. So first, what is natural selection? Natural selection is the idea that the organism that is better adapted to the environment will survive and reproduce. So those that are better adapted will survive and they will reproduce. The other word that we're going to need to know today is variation. The word variation means differences within a species that enhances their chances of survival. So the word variation means the same thing as differences. So if you were to look at this picture here, I can see that they're all birds, but they have a variation, meaning they have a difference. The variation that I see right offhand is that the variation is the shape of the beak. This one has a very long beak, this one has much more short beak, and this one is very curved. So that would be a variation. Let's try a couple more. Take a look at the butterflies here. What is the variation? If you said wing shape or the color of the butterfly, you are correct. So you can look at the butterflies here and see that this one is slightly different in shape than this one, and the color on the wings are slightly different than the next. So that would be the variation. Let's try one more. The starfish that are seen here, what's the variation? The correct answer would be the variation would be the shape or even the structure and texture. I can see that there's small spikes off of this starfish, but this one has very rounded edges. So the difference or the variation is the color and the shape of these starfish. And finally, let's try one more. Look at these finches, which is just a type of bird that you see here. What's the variation? If you said beak shape, you are correct. It is in fact the difference between each of the birds here. I can see this one has a very broad beak. This one has a much smaller and more pointed beak than the others. So let's take an example of natural selection. Suppose you saw two of these rabbits. Which rabbit has a better chance of surviving in the North Pole? Why? If you said the white rabbit, you're absolutely correct. The white rabbit has a better chance of surviving because it can camouflage a lot better than the brown rabbit in the North Pole. We know that the North Pole is often covered in snow, and so the white rabbit would be able to camouflage and hide from its predators. Here's an example of what I mean. So this brown rabbit here, poor thing, is going to get eaten up by these hungry polar bears because it can easily be seen. But the white rabbit that's here may be able to camouflage just a bit better. And so these hungry polar bears might not actually see the white rabbit as they pass on by. So you can see in this example that this polar bear has found dinner, and this polar bear is not going to be able to see the rabbit because it's good, it can able to blend into the environment with its camouflage. So let's take a look at an example. If there were brown rabbits here, all the brown rabbits would begin to die off. These rabbits would be affected because the polar bears could easily spot them and they would eat them as their prey. So all the brown rabbits die. But in the case of the white rabbits, only about one white rabbit would die because the rest of them are able to camouflage and the polar bears cannot see them. This is the concept of natural selection. So those white rabbits, the ones that are remaining, are going to have babies. They're going to reproduce, which means that they're going to pass on the variation or the trait to their offspring. So the babies that are born out of the white rabbits would also have white fur, which allows them to camouflage. So now in Antarctica or in the tundra, we have all white rabbits. They're the rabbits that are best able to survive because they're best adapted to the environment. Let's take a look at another example. Now assume that only rabbits with blubber can survive the cold. You can see here that these rabbits have a lot more blubber on their bones that allow them to survive the extreme temperatures of the tundra. The rabbits on the other side, though, are much smaller and don't have the blubber to surround their bones. Because of that, these rabbits would die off, and the only rabbits able to survive would be those that are better adapted, which would be the rabbits with blubber. In this case, of course, those rabbits would reproduce, and now we would have all white rabbits with blubber in the tundra. We can say that the rabbits evolved into white rabbits with blubber through the process of natural selection. Today in practice, you guys are going to look at a few different examples of species evolving over time through natural selection. We're going to take a look at 2 more examples before you practice today. Take a look at the butterfly on the left and the one on the right. Which animal will natural selection favor? Meaning, which of these would be most able to survive and reproduce in the environment? If you said the one on the left, which is the one that's brown in color, you are correct. It's best able to survive because it looks very much like a leaf, and so its ability to camouflage actually helps it to survive. This brightly colored butterfly would not be able to survive very long in a rainforest environment. Let's take a look at another. The seahorses that you see here, the one that's better able to survive is definitely the one on the right. It has the ability through an adaptation in order to look like a plant at the bottom of the ocean. The yellow one stands out very brightly and would be quickly eaten by predators. So natural selection would favor the one on the right. You guys are going to continue with practice today. Please make sure that you're writing in complete sentences as you answer the questions. Good luck.